Okay. Today we're joined by Mr. John Dochety, PGA, a.k.a. Lake 1926. How are you, John?
Doing fine, Ralph. How about yourself?
Good. Raining up here, so I'm rained in for the weekend.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, brutal. Brutal it shall be, Johnny.
Yeah.
So let's start by you telling us about yourself personally.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate it. And just a little bit about, I guess, myself personally. I'm 33 years old, married to my wife, Chelsea, for 10 years. We're got our anniversary coming up here soon, and we have a daughter who's 8 years old named Madison. I grew up kind of all over the country. Went to school at Mississippi State, and now working at Lakewood Golf and Country Club in Tullahoma, Tennessee.
Oh, that's great. So when did you start playing golf, John?
Well, I don't want people to turn off the interview before we get into the fun stuff, but you know, like most golf professionals, obviously we're not playing for a living. I started at a young age, probably like most folks did that got in the business, 8, 9, 10, 11. Started swinging a little club with my dad. My dad was always a member of a little club somewhere where we lived in the country. By the age of 12, started taking private lessons and playing in little tournaments, and then through high school started getting real serious, working with a real fine instructor out in California, where I moved to when we went my high school years. But Tom Sargent started giving me instruction, and once I started getting lessons from him, really started getting a good grasp on the game. And that's when I played really my best golf. It was probably somewhere between my freshman and junior year when I started to peak as a player, thanks primarily to Tom and, you know, how he trained me and how he communicated the game to me at that age and how I could digest it at that age. Tom Sargent, you know, now knowing what I know about golf professionals, just a fine professional. He actually won the PGA Professional of the Year in the mid-'90s, and that's about the time I was with him. But played actually out there with Tiger, Ted O, and another kid that probably a lot of folks don't know of, Sue Man Kim, was on my golf team at Glendora Country Club. And Sue Man Kim was probably one of the finest players I ever played with, was from South Korea. And actually when he graduated, he was a year ahead of me. When he graduated, he actually had to go back and serve 2 years in the South Korean Army. And every year I get on Google and I look him up and see how he's doing. And you know, he's been playing a little bit, but really once he went back to South Korea and served in the Army, that was it for him. But I grew up in an area where there was a lot of good players. It wasn't really cool to play the game back then in Southern California, but it was fun. But anyways, I had a golf scholarship to UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara, and chose to go to Mississippi State instead due to the professional golf management program that they offered, which is a program that kids to become PGA professionals versus PGA Tour professionals. I always say there's two types of golf professionals. You got professional golfers, that's guys like Tiger and Stewart Cink, and then you got golf professionals, and those guys really are the ones on the front lines, growing the game, running daily play, running pro shops, tournaments, merchandising, and so forth. Anyways, I went to school at Mississippi State to be trained to be a golf professional, and tried to get on their golf team at Mississippi State. Just happened to run into a buzzsaw with a lot of fine players, probably some of the best players that ever played at Mississippi State in the history of the university. During that time, we had guys, Michael Connell, who actually finished in the top 10 at the Honda Classic this week, Alex Roca, too, who just actually had one of his better tour events at the Honda Classic, and then Chad Wellhauser, who's just a fantastic player, and a couple other guys that were fabulous, too, but just didn't make it on the tour. But anyways, so in my freshman year, I kind of realized that golf professional stuff is the way I was going to go. Kind of geared myself to that, and then entered at 3 fine courses at Annandale Country Club out in Pasadena is where I went first. Annandale Golf Club, actually 2 Annandales, Annandale Golf Club in Jackson, Mississippi is where I went second with Stephen Christopher, and the third one with Clayton Cole at Cherry Hills Country Club out in Denver, Colorado. And then after that, moved to East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, where then I started playing again when I got to East Lake, started playing in some Georgia section events and so forth, and have continued to play in section events to this day. But that pretty much wraps up my playing career. Hope nobody turned off the interview so far about as dull as it gets as far as the playing career. Mainly my goal is to help people play better now, and then that's where my focus is at.
So at some point you decided that teaching was going to be your calling. Well, a lot of people do that. A lot of people start, once they start learning about the intricacies of the golf swing, and if they're with the a good pro, they start to kind of, take a liking to it. But at what point did you decide that you would become a teacher?
I've never lost sight of playing. I've always wanted to play on the tour. That's what got me in the game in the first place. I've idolized players. When I grew up, it was Davis Love, Freddie Couples, and stuff. But and that dream I've never left that dream. I've always said to myself, man, one day maybe I could qualify for a tournament and get on the PGA Tour. I mean, that's the dream that got me in this business, and that dream is now what carries with me with kids. But as far as when I realized it was over for me and started getting into teaching, that was at an East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, was when I really started getting into teaching, and just happened to be in a wonderful place as far as a hotbed for instructors in Atlanta, and a lot of instructors that actually have been touched by Homer Kelly and the Golf Machine, who I got to know down there. And then obviously having some great players at that facility too, Billy Andrade and Stuart Sink, that I got to spend some time with their golf instructors when they came to the club and started saying, hey, that's pretty cool. What are you guys working on? Oh, we just want you to sit here and listen. And they let me, and I got into it, and starting to see a whole other branch of the golf industry that I really didn't even think about while I was going through the PGM program before. Kind of thought it was all about pulling up carts and caddies and tournaments and folding shirts and selling golf balls and so forth, and kind of realized, hey, there's a whole new thing to this and teaching, and that's pretty cool. I kind of like that, but I have no clue what the heck's going on with teaching. I had some lessons, obviously, growing up since I was 12 all the way up through high school and college, and you never really considered it as something that I do for a living. And it was about that point, I'd say, right out of college, that I started waking up to it and started realizing, I need to get some information here so that I could jump in this field and help some folks out, because it's really something that interested me, and really something that I knew back then, that I felt that, hey, I wanted to do this.
Where do you currently teach, John?
Currently right outside of Nashville. It's about an hour in Lakewood Golf and Country Club in Tullahoma, Tennessee. It's actually home to Arnold Air Force. That's kind of our claim to fame, and real close to us is Jack Daniel's Distillery in Lynchburg, Tennessee. So we got some cool little neat things near us, but Tullahoma is not a name you hear too much when you hear of Tennessee. But it's a very unique town, about 20,000 folks, and lots of different people from all over the world. So it's a real neat melting pot for a small community. Get a lot of smart people there, a lot of engineers, and it's a medical hub for 3 or 4 different towns. So you got a lot. It's not your typical southern town, in that there's a lot of unique folks that move there, and then that's what really attracted me to that place when I actually interviewed there in 2004, when I drove up and saw the lifestyle that was there when I got to meeting people, and then that's what locked me in there, and I was fortunate enough to get that job, and have enjoyed every second of it since.
Diversity, that's a great thing. Let's talk about your relationship with the golfing machine. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to. Kind of starting out in Atlanta, was very fortunate enough to be around probably a good many of the folks that are the who's who in the golf machine, in that Ted Fort, Lynn Blake, Mike Perpich, several others in that area that I worked with. Actually worked with Oswald Dochety personally on my golf swing, which was George Kellenhofer's same place that he taught out of, which Oswald has shared a lot of the same. But got to meet and be around a lot of those guys, and influenced a lot by them, and started kind of picking up on something I'd never heard of, which was the golfing machine. And it was very interesting, a little yellow book, and purchased that way back then, and started, obviously like everyone else that ever has picked up or looked at that book, just blown away by how confusing it was at first, and how different sections. It wasn't very, drawn out there like most books, in order. It was more like an encyclopedia. And obviously at that point, once I started buying that book, realized I needed some help to interpret it. So, once that kind of clicked in my head, I started going seeing people and trying to get some help on that. And one of the people I called on first was Chuck Evans, and still to this day call on him. It's one of my mentors and somebody I look up to a lot. He has walked me through the golf machine, and he's been teaching it and training people on it for 20, 30 years. and has, while he's been doing that, also been given a ton of lessons. So he's got a real good hands-on feel to it. You know, I always say in the golf machine there's lots of different interpretations based on what Homer said or what Homer wrote. And, you know, Chuck's been real good for me to a lot of Chapter 10 stuff, a lot of component matching, a lot of interpretation on it that is more real-world stuff, more, hey, you know, you got a student in front of you, you know, let's look at this. You know, let's not get all caught up in the terminology of it. You know, let's look more at what that terminology means and how we can apply it to a golf lesson. So Chuck's been my number one, and still to this day has been. But I also have been fortunate enough to visit with Lynn and Ted Fort, and also Mark Blackburn, who is a GSEM in the golf machine, just about an hour south of me in Huntsville, Alabama, who another probably instructor that more people should know, but a guy that has worked with Heath Slocum and Boo Weekley and has really helped Heath take it to the next level. Well, Mark's been a good friend and somebody that I could always call on or visit and watch teach. So there's been many people in the golf machine that have helped me basically translate it into real world stuff that helps me with my teaching and how I view the golf swing now. But the golf machine, I'd say, is a huge part of my life to this day.
Okay, so let's continue on. You've had your tutelage from Chuck Evans, and you had the Southeast over there with Lynn Blake and all those guys. You got your golfing machine dose, and let's talk about your evolution as an instructor.
Yeah, you know, the golf machine came first, and you know, at that point I realized that, hey, you know, this is some great stuff, and you know, my eyes were open then to a whole new world of stuff. You know, just kind of like, wow, I never thought of it that way or looked at it this way. And Blackburn said, hey, John, I go, you know, if you're serious about this golf instruction stuff, he goes, you probably need to go see Mac O'Grady. And so I said, who's Mac O'Grady? And he goes, you don't know who Mac is? And I go, well, no, I don't. And, you know, I've heard the name before, maybe on the tour, but he goes, well, he's since 1984 has been studying the golf swing and actually worked one-on-one with Homer Kelly, and has developed a research project in which he named the Mankind's Objective Research and Development, also what most of us know as MORAD, and has worked with pretty much everyone who's a who's who on the PGA Tour and also the golf industry. I mean, everyone from Martin Hall to, you just named down the list, and those people have either spent time with Mac or know Mac stuff pretty good. And so I said, well, yes, I would love to go meet Mac. And so he got me his contact information. I went on his website, I got his email, and actually started emailing him. And, you know, it took about 6 months and about 7 or 8 emails, me just introducing myself. You know, Mr. O'Grady, this is John Dochety. You know, I'd love to get the chance to meet with you, and never heard back. And about 7 or 8 emails, 6 months later, I actually had a phone call in the golf shop, just routine phone call, came in, my assistant answered, and I said, Lakewood Golf Shop, this is John. He goes, John, this is Mac O'Grady. And I go, Mr. O'Grady, how are you doing? He goes, doing good. And he goes, do you know what I'm looking at? And I go, no, sir, I don't. And he goes, I'm actually looking at my inbox and my email, and I'm looking at 30 emails here from you. And I said, well, yes, sir. And he goes, well, John, what do you want? And I go, well, Mr. O'Grady, I would love the chance to spend some time with you and learn the golf swing. And he goes, so we can make that happen. And from that time, the first school till now, it's 6 symposiums later. So I've obviously been very blessed to spend a great deal of time with Mr. O'Grady on the golf swing and cherish every second of it. He has been just an unbelievable mentor and somebody that's even opened my eyes to the golf swing that no one else has even come close to as far as just sequencing and just a whole bunch of things I'm sure we'll get into later. Just somebody who obviously I hold very highly in my career, and to this day appreciate everything that he's shared with me as far as the golf swing. Also, too, as far as things you asked about, what else have I done? I got into TPI, went and did the seminar with him initially, and then I followed that up with a level 2 CPI, which is what you do after you do the first one. You get more in-depth, and you have to pick kind of a career path, I guess you'd say, and I chose the junior golf just because I love working with kids, and I kind of feel that's the future of the game, and really had a good time with that, too. So you could probably say TGM, TPI, and then MORAD have been kind of my things that I've dove into since I've been a golf instructor pretty heavily.
Okay, great. So What would you say? I mean, I looked at your website. It seems like you're working with a lot of good players. At the same time, you are teaching out of a club, so you have to address both ends of the spectrum. So you have the members, where you have Miss McGillicuddy, who just retired and just grabbed the club, and at the other side of the spectrum, you have a mini tour player. I saw you might have had the state open champ working with you. How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's the most fun about this job, is you really don't know who the next hour you're working with. I mean, it could be the guy who's just won the state open, a PGA Tour player possibly, or potential PGA Tour player, or someone that just started the game. And as far as handling that, that's kind of the big thing. As far as Tom Sargent passed that on to me so long ago. And especially when he found out I was going to be a golf professional. Because, you got to really find out what that person wants. What they want out of this lesson. So you got to listen. I think one of the big things about being a golf instructor, or someone in any field especially that has to do with people, you got to listen. You got to know what they want. There's always something that's bothering them. You start focusing on their right knee. The last 5 years, it might have been something in their golf swing that really affected them that they were upset about. It might have been they were hitting a pull cut, or they didn't like the head movement, or they really just didn't like this, that, or the other about their golf swing. And I kind of take that upon myself, that that's my job, to kind of help them either understand that part, fix that part, or just kind of maybe put that focus on something where it needs to be and explain why. So the big thing, I feel that, being able to communicate to that person exactly why they need to either change the focus or understand why that problem existed and how to fix it in detail. Not a simple answer. I like to make a complicated answer simple. That's kind of my focus. Is take a very in-depth sequence, a very in-depth alignment, and try to make that as simple as possible to them by explaining it to them in as best of terms I can. Communication being the number one thing that I hold in regard as far as instruction out there. So, yeah, to answer your question about the different levels, I just listen, sit there and kind of get an idea about where I need to put this focus of this hour or this day or this 3 days with this student and help them get better. So the whole thing is, don't make any damage, just like a medical professional. Don't get that person worse. Get them better. Help them immediately improve. Help them improve their understanding. Help them improve their motion. Help them improve their shots. Help them improve their golf IQ. Stuff like that is where I put my focus, dealing with different people at different levels.
So we just hit the buzzword right there. We had spoken about this earlier, but we mentioned that perhaps your focus was to help the golfer with his IQ, right? The golf IQ.
We spoke about this last time. I think golf IQ is where it's at. When you see someone go further in the game, they become smarter with the game. They understand more about where their club face is. They understand more where their path is. They understand more about how their hands take a role. They understand more about their body. They understand about acceleration rates and time and space and how far the ball goes and how it reacts. All that is intelligence. It's gathering information and data, and then being able to repeat that when that scenario happens again. So, one of the big things, you made a great term last time we talked about golf IQ. I think that's where it's at. If you look at better players versus amateur players or beginner players, where the difference lies is the experience. It's being able to draw back upon a good shot, a feeling, a memory of what they did. We all do it. Even me at this level, if I went out and played tomorrow, I'm going to have a chip shot, and I'm going to have a break on that chip shot. That green will break, and I'm going to have to read that chip shot based on the feel, the spin, based on how that ball is going to react on the green, based on the pace. The length of time that ball is going to run on that green, where it might be different than Augusta National or the course I'm a member at. A pro at. That feedback, that intelligence factor, that stuff right there, that golf IQ is basically what I'm trying to relay to my students. In so many words, every lesson that I spend with a student, I hope to get them smarter about golf. I hope to get them more intelligent about their golf swing. I want them to know it better. I want them to understand how whatever we're talking about improves their game. better. And that's where I really think improvement of the game is like you said, golf IQ. That's a huge term, a big term, a broad term, but really sums it up.
That's the key going for, at least for the players that are becoming better and lowering their handicaps. They need to. I feel that for my own game, I need to understand what it is that I'm doing. My coach is not going to be there on the golf course if something goes awry. I have to figure out what it is that's going wrong and how I can fix it in a moment's notice. And I think
exactly.
that we can all communicate, that you can communicate that to your students so that if, in fact, they do hit that block right that they were hitting before, they understand the causes and the consequences as it relates to that particular shot and how they can fix it.
I think you nailed it. I think as a teacher, it's our responsibility to make our students smarter. And like any good apprentice to their master, that at some point that the level that they need will equal you. I mean, I think there's not this whole idea of trying just to give them just enough so that they come back's ridiculous. I try to get my students as smart as possible, as smart as me, about everything I know that they need to know at that time that they want to know. So, I mean, if block right's the issue, I want them to understand every bit about that block right, whether it has to do with the path, the face, toe-heel contact, angle of ascent or descent, all that stuff plays a huge role in helping them get better. So, I mean, just like you said, 99.999% of the time, they're not with you. They're out there on that course. I mean, I take phone calls from my students all the time. I take emails. I take texts. I hear, man, I'm pulling it. I'm pushing it. I'm topping it. I'm chunking it. I'm hitting it too low. I'm hitting it too high. All these things that I know they worked on before. When I hear them say that, I know we discussed it before. But, I feel it's my responsibility to make sure that they know and understand exactly why that's happening so that they can correct that. It doesn't go on 2 or 3 holes. It happens one shot and they're done. They fix it.
Okay, let's go into some of the stroke components. What are your thoughts on grip pressure?
Grip pressure is a very interesting subject. I mean, we've all heard about it, anywhere from one guy like Sam Snead saying you need to have light grip pressure. I mean, even I was listening to Jamie Sadlowski, the long drive champion of the world, talk about grip pressure actually on a little video I watched on YouTube, saying how light he felt his grip pressure was. And then you hear other players, say, they got a stronger pressure. They feel like it's, tighter. They want more control. They especially around impact. My viewpoint on grip pressure is that, once we get the grip in place, and there's several different ways to grip the club, obviously, demonstrated by all the PGA Tour players and great players that have played the game. So there's not a fundamentally one way to grip the club. There's different pressures at different points in the swing. I feel like once you got that grip in place, that as long as we maintain that grip throughout that golf swing and that we're not letting things get too loose or out of control, that we don't know where the face is, we don't know where the path is shaft, we're losing control of our flexion in our arms. I think it gets to the point, if we actually discuss grip pressure and we got into a debate about grip pressure, I think grip pressure changes. And that's my opinion. I think at one point in the swing, grip pressure in a certain area might be a little more than others. So it's not one thing I would probably write a book about on grip pressure, and I probably wouldn't say as simple as Sam did or Jamie said it. I think grip pressure's variable. It changes. I think once we have a good grip, I think different feels change. I think there's certain pressures in the hands we feel that are very important. Pressure point in the golf machine at number 3 is a very important pressure point as far as the club head, how the inertia, where it's at. Let's just simply say where it's at in the golf swing. I think pressure point number 2, the last 3 fingers of the left hand, are very important. I think pressure point number 1, and now again, a lot of people may not know these pressure points that are listening to this, but basically what these pressure points are is when there's a power source, say, exerted through the arms or hands or shoulders, they ultimately have to go through the hands because the golf club's what is holding on, and the hands are what's holding on to the golf club. So there's different pressures felt through the hands when different power or different motions are made in the golf swing. Homer Kelly identified these pressure points as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 1 being the heel pad of the right hand on the left hand thumb. Number 2 being the last 3 fingers of the left hand. Number 3 being your right index finger. Number 4 being your left armpit. I mean, I think there's other pressures in that. Obviously, there's pressures in the feet. There's a lot more pressures in the grip felt throughout the golf swing. There's pressures in the armpits also in the right armpit. So there's lots of pressures. You can get in depth about this as you want. Again, I don't think this is a cure-all. We need to talk about all this at once, like take all the medicine at one time. But I do feel that understanding for a particular person might need to understand a certain pressure point or a certain, that might come into play. The word pressure point never ever may be used, and hopefully not. But for a teacher, for someone listening to this interview, an instructor, a good thing to know about that stuff. Good thing to know is about as many pressures that are involved in the golf swing as possible. I think especially as an instructor, or someone that really enjoys to study the golf swing, might be an amateur. Like yourself, that enjoys learning about these things. It just might be a hobby to kind of pick up on it. But the grip pressure, I'm not going to give you a simple answer on it. I feel it's too complicated of an issue to do it. But I would say I like to know where the club's at. I like to know where the face is at. I'm not going to be holding it all loosey-goosey on you. I'm gonna have a pretty good handle on it, but I'm also not going to be gripping the death out of it. I like to say my wrists are loose, my fingers are tight. I've got a pressure on my hands, but my wrists are able to move. Nothing like lockdown penitentiary style.
Okay, so let's go into that circular question. I think kind of like chicken or the egg type of thing. Do you view the golf swing as pivot-controlled hands or hand-controlled pivots?
Well, if you went to TPI. If you went to do a bio at TPI, you would come out of that thing thinking, man, all I got to do is get my hips going, get my shoulders after my hips, and get my arms after my shoulders. And after my shoulders, have my hands in my club. You think it's all pivot controlled. I mean, some lessons you're going to leave thinking it's all pivot controlled. And then some lessons you're going to leave feeling like it's all hands controlled. You go to a golf machine, a true golf machine instructor that's, probably going to feel like it's all hands controlled. I mean, you're going to probably put a lot of focus on what are your hands doing. You're going to get that from me. You're also going to get a pivot lesson, depending on the person. So what's hand control? What's pivot control? Well, you're not going to have a good golf swing without a good pivot. And so, I truly believe that the pivot must be trained, must be educated. All my true beginners, the ones that come to me, have never played before, we learn how the body moves. We learn about flexion, extension, side bending. We learn it, and it's not hard. And in 30, 45 minutes an hour, I mean, my student's got a biomechanics degree and how to understand how that body works. And I'm talking about men, women, children, seniors. It's not hard. People are smarter than I think a lot of teachers give them credit for. And that's one of my big philosophies. I like to say, hey, this is what happens in the golf swing. I like to explain it to you why it's happening. Understanding these things that are happening in the pivot, that what your body does. I feel you need to know, because I don't want to just tell you to do something and you just, assume that I'm right. I want you to understand exactly what I'm trying to do with your golf swing, what you need to do it, and how to do it. I feel that's very important as far as the pivot's concerned, and also the hands, arms, elbows, club, knees, feet, all that stuff. So as far as saying hands control pivot or pivot controlled hands, I say it's both. I'd say it's maybe hands control for one person. One person might need more of that. One person might need more pivot. I would say it's case by case as far as that goes. It's so many things, probably like lawyers. I think good golf instructors, the ones that really are the best, are probably going to use the word depends more than any other word that they have in their vocabulary, because a lot of things depend. They depend on the situation, the player, what they need, what's required for that certain person, what component, what sequence, what alignment. I think depends is a great word. I think hands control depends, pivot control depends on the player. I just don't fall into one camp, unfortunately. I think all my answers are going to be that way, and probably just because I've been to see so many people and heard so many different ways that, in their opinion, is done, and I do believe pieces of it, and just haven't bought into one system, one-size-fits-all thing.
What are your thoughts on lag?
Well, clubhead lag, very interesting subject. We talked a little bit this last time. I think it's a hot topic. I think if you posted something on Golf WRX about lag, you'd probably have it last on that front page for quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I believe I haven't been on there. I'm actually down in Florida, about to go on a cruise, but last time I looked on Golf WRX, there's another one about lag, and then that'll filter down to the second page, and then someone else will post something about lag, and actually one of my good friends, Jeff Evans, has a great toy that the Pure Ball Striker that talks a lot about lag, and me, the word lag is synonymous with feel, and there's a lot of lags. There's pivot, anything trailing Another component is lagging. So, I mean, if you got the shoulders trailing the hips, you got pivot lag. You got the club shaft, you got wrist cock, you got what's probably most people would consider lag. Most people, you say lag, they think Ben Hogan, Sergio Garcia. You think left wrist cock really is what that is. You don't think so much about pivot lag or club head lag. But I mean, you look at every good golf swing, especially at slow motion, and the club shaft is actually bowed forward. Is actually bowed forward, like not bowed back at impact, before impact and at impact. So Homer Kelly talked about lag as being the secret of golf. And to me, that secret of golf is club head feel. I mean, as a player, let's just make an analogy to fishing. I think most of us guys have drawn back a fishing rod at some point in our life, and we never had to get a fishing lesson on how to draw back a fishing rod. I mean, we take that fishing rod back, we load that lure, that weight, we feel that weight. We draw that weight, we keep it moving forward, we know where it's at, then we release that weight. That feel of where that weight is, that feel of that acceleration, that direction, all that lag is feel. I mean, anything in a lagging component is more proprioception, it's more feel, it's more awareness in space of where that object is. I think getting caught up in wrist cock is ridiculous. Getting caught up in having all this, what Homer Kelly term number 2 accumulator, which is the wrist cock, left wrist cock angle, which is a vertical motion in regard to the plane angle, plane line. It's always vertical, and never bending or arching. But the whole left wrist cock thing is, I think drawn out a little bit. I think some people need it. Look at Sergio swinging down at a very low plane angle, a lot more compatible with wrist cock. Guys, Tom Watson swinging on a more upright plane angle, not very compatible with a lot of wrist cock. Let's get that wrist cock out of there. Some people like to swing on that lower plane angle. Different cup of tea for different folks. I just don't think getting caught up in that one thing is a big deal. I think there's a bigger deal, and not breaking down that left wrist, not getting a lot of left wrist bend, which actually is very compatible with the hands-only plane, which is a very flat plane angle, which is underneath the elbow. We actually got a video on my YouTube site out. Nor that is swinging down there on the hands-only plane, flipping biscuits and hitting balls behind him. So obviously there's a time for it. And then a lot of great players that have played the PGA Tour have bent the left wrist. So it's not like the left wrist has to be flat in the game. So interesting. It's a long topic. We could sit here all night and talk about lag and how good it looks and how much you think you can hit it further. But looking at some of the biggest hitters of the game in the Remax long drive thing, some of them don't have a whole lot of lag as far as wrist cock is concerned. They're less sweepy, uncocking that left wrist and getting it out of there. So pretty interesting topic. Some people need it. So as far as wrist cock, some people don't. Down there at impact, the left wrist better be level, so you better not have a whole lot of wrist cock coming into impact. Hand speed, hand speed has a lot to do with. Homer talked about it, acceleration of the hands, as far as over acceleration or quitting. And over acceleration is one of the biggest problems in the game. You had a lot of wrist cock swing. Your hands better be slower because you got to give yourself time to get that wrist cock out of there by impact. You get that wrist cock out of there early, you better have a little quicker hands so that you don't have throwaway down there at impact as well. So there's a lot of different sequences that go along with different swing types, and a lot of people want to look. They want to look like Hogan, they want to look like Sergio, and that all requires different sequences, different times, rates of speed to get that look. At certain times you got to be quick with the hands, and other times you better be slow to get that wrist cock out. So there's a lot of things that go into lag. That, again, I think a good instructor just to educate their student. If that's something they want, like I said earlier in our conversation, then that's something they're going to get.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about, you mentioned that you were up at, was it Jones Creek? And you guys were experimenting with some different technologies, including TrackMan. What are your views on modern technology as they apply to the golf swing? And how people are incorporating it into their day-to-day teaching. You one of these guys embracing this stuff? Do you look forward to incorporating things like TrackMan and others and the 3D type things into your teaching curriculum?
Yeah, I mean, if I had the money today, I would be on the phone with Frederick and ordering a TrackMan unit right now, $30,000 for the unit I want. And I'd also be calling EMN and getting one of their 3D systems, hopefully a wireless one. But yes, as far as technology, I'm in. I want everything possible that's going to give me the best information, help my student play better now. You know, I am the biggest fan of the best information. That's why I spend so much time on these forums. I mean, anywhere from Brian Manzella's site to Lynn Blake's site to Golf WRX to Richie Three Jack's blog to your blog, Gotham Golf Blog, and to all these different sources of information. I am going to dive in there and find out the latest, greatest stuff. And if that means it's going to be a TrackMan unit, which happens to be right now probably the best thing on the market, it's a Doppler radar unit that pretty much gives you an MRI of your golf swing as far as everything with the club head, club face, angle, ascent, and gives you feedback immediately on what you need to do to hit that ball straighter, or if you need to curve it, what you need to do to curve it. As far, and then also the AMM, the 3D simulation software stuff that gives you feedback based on what your body's doing in space, but what's it doing in time? What's moving? When? Where? In your motion? You know, how's that? And then, you know, then I think you can take that information and say, well, that's why this is affecting your geometry. So you got these physics things affecting your geometry, or possibly your geometry probably more times than not is affecting your physics. I mean, you got all these toys and tools, and one of the favorite toys that I actually do own is the Casio XF1, which films at a very high frames per second, which has been great. It's been great to be able to look at a player at that slow of motion and see that many frames and to see what they're doing in space and time. You know, those tools have been invaluable. And I have been fortunate enough to work some good bit of time on TrackMan and FlightScope, and also the AMM stuff with Michael Voigt up at Belmont University and TPI, and get a good bit of information there so that I can share that with my students with my eye. Of course, I'd love to have that stuff. I always tell people, if you give me a AMM and a TrackMan and my Casio, I can, you know, go wherever you want. And I think that's really all you need. The information, the understanding of the golf swing, and those toys would be pretty invaluable as far as helping people get better. And I know the more people, we're seeing it now on Hank Haney's show, even Hank's using a TrackMan, and several other prom instructors have incorporated TrackMans in their teaching, and I think you'll continue to see that trend.
Great. Now, you just mentioned the word there about an MRI of your golf swing. Do you believe, I believe that everybody has their own unique swing DNA. In other words, there's a swing for everybody out there. You just have to find it. Would you agree with that point?
Yeah, you know, I totally agree with that. I think every person you see has a different sequence, has a different alignment. They're a lot based on their sequence and what moves when and how fast it moves. It changes alignments. You know, it changes different power, how the accumulators work as far as the golf machine's concerned. It changes the path, or it changes the plane angle, or it changes the face, how fast the face either closes or it even opens coming through the stroke. I mean, you see all these different people with all these different DNAs, as you say, come to the golf swing. I think exactly right. I think the whole makeup of the golf swing is so individualistic. There's no way you could come up with a swing pattern and have everyone fall into it. I think it would be very difficult. I think we could all pose the finish. I think we could all do like the three stations of the golf machine. I think we all could look pretty similar to dress. I think we all could look pretty similar to top. I think we could all look pretty similar at the finish. You know, the stuff that goes in the middle, all the different sequences and the times and the things that really make a player better than the next player, they're all different. And that being said, that's why this TrackMan stuff's so invaluable, because it says, hey, this is what you do to your golf swing. You know, this is what you need to do to your golf swing to hit this ball laser-like straight down Broadway. I think those type things that make golf instruction probably will never ever go away from being a one-on-one, I want to see you, I want to watch you, I will need you in front of me to really help you improve situation. You know, these video lessons and blah, 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 online stuff, they're probably helpful. You know, people send me their videos and stuff, and I see a few things wrong with them, but where the help is that you got a good eye looking at you and they're right there with you. They can help you improve then, because like you said, everyone's different. Everyone's going to swing different. Everyone's going to have a different pace. Somebody might rotate their wrist at a faster rate than their shoulders open up. Some people might open their shoulders up at a faster rate than their hands move. You know, there's going to be all these different sequences in their motion, and to help them improve, you need to identify that, and that's where every single person is going to be a little bit different.
Great. Okay. Now, who would you say has had the greatest influence on your teaching ability?
Well, you know, I've been thinking about, this after you asked me this before, and I think it's a very dangerous question, because I've obviously been around so many great minds in the golf swing that people, if they listen to this, I don't want to insult them. I think every person I've ever had the chance to work with has influenced me in a positive way, times 10. I think the people I've worked with the most being the guys that I've really cherished and have had time, I have been blessed with the time. Obviously, number one's been Mac O'Grady. For two, if I had to list them in order, Chuck Evans, who I still work with to this day, put them up there, at the top of the list. Mark Blackburn, I hold a lot of guys. Tom Sargent, who I started the game with, influenced me to this day especially as far as his ethics are concerned, and how he handles himself and how he handles the lesson. I'll never forget him coming up to me in my first lesson, and and he was trying to get me to do something, and I said, Tom, I can't do it. And he goes, that's all right. If you can't do it, we'll go inside and get a couple Cokes, because we're wasting your dad's money if you can't do it. And at that moment, at that time, I realized I would never, ever, in front of anyone trying to help me again, say that four-letter word can't. And I would work my butt off to never, ever say that word can't. And then the word can't is a very powerful word, because if you can or if you can't, you're right. And that mental attitude of whether you can or you can't is so powerful that I feel that you need to take that positive attitude with you, because you can, and you can't. But who wants to can't? Who wants to not be able to do it? So that holds with me today, and the stuff that he taught me, and obviously the information I've been so blessed with Mac O'Grady, and opened my eyes to a whole new world of things as far as what the body and the golf club does during the 1.2 seconds we dance. And then Chuck Evans being just a great mentor to me and to this day, and moving me along in my career and helping me understand the golf machine on a daily basis. And then people like yourself that do these golf blogs, and the folks that post on Golf WRX, and the folks I'm blessed with coming to my lesson tee, I learn from them just as much. I feel every lesson I give, I get better, and I hope to get better. And so, I have to thank every person, Mark Blackburn, also David Orr, who, opened my eyes to putting. It was a part of the game that I'd kind of just blown off. He is, again, just like Mac did, opened my eyes to a whole new spectrum of putting. It's just an endless thing. George Hunt down in Orlando, who's also been the right-hand guy to Mac O'Grady, has said things in a different way or expressed things to a different way to me to help me understand it more. Just a whole list of people, that I admire and appreciate. Dana Dalquist, Mike McNary. I talk on the phone daily out there to San Diego, to Bob Townsend and Dan Carrera, Jeff Evans down in Georgia. Guys that I just shoot the breeze with, shoot the golf swing with, talk alignments, talk golf swing. Those type conversations are just priceless to me, and those influence me the most. And hopefully, if I listen to this a couple years down the road, there'll be 20 more on that list. That will be the same, and hopefully I'll also listen to this and go, why didn't I say this, that, or the other? Because I hope to get better tomorrow, and I hope the next conversation we have, I'm better than this conversation. And I think anyone in successful business feels the same way, and golf instruction is my business, and I obviously want to have the best information on the market, and that's my goal. Help people get better the fastest. And to help my students become the best they can be and beat everybody they play. And that's my goal.
You're located. How far are you from the nearest transportation? So if somebody from outside your local region would like to come see you, how convenient is it to get to your place from the nearest airport or from the nearest interstate?
Well, I'm about an hour outside. If you flew into Nashville International Airport, it's about an hour drive to Tullahoma, Tennessee. And, my clubs, I've been very fortunate enough that Lakewood's allowed me to teach non-members, and I've also been very fortunate enough to have a lot of guests come in from out of town and to work with them, and that's something I really do appreciate. And anyways, it's not a bad drive. We got some neat little things, to do around the area as far as Jack Daniels and a couple other neat little sites. It's obviously beautiful. country. Tennessee's, world renowned for being God's country, as they say here in Nashville. And you got some great country music and some fun live entertainment downtown. So it's a fun place to also come visit. But yeah, obviously would love to have people come see me.
Great, John. Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you sitting down with us and letting us get to know you. As I said before, there are quite a few teachers on there that people have never heard of. You could probably fall into the woodwork, and there's a lot of guys that just pound their chest to get on these top 100 lists. It's just a shame because a lot of people really get stuck, buried under layers and layers of bureaucracy and stuff. So it's good to talk to guys like yourself and others out there that have something to offer and that most of the public most of the people aren't aware of. So our job is to try to bring people to the forefront to get to know these instructors that aren't on the cover of Golf Digest, on the cover of Golf Tips, on the cover of this. And I felt that you would be a prime candidate for that, just based on what I've read and my interaction with you on the different forums and looking at your YouTube videos. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us and letting us get to know you on this fine Saturday.
Well, thank you, Ralph. I appreciate you calling me, and I appreciate this opportunity, and I think you obviously have done a wonderful job with your blog, and like you said, you've brought a lot of instructors that maybe a lot of folks hadn't heard of that they should have heard of, and I looked at your forum and your blog and felt very in a high regard as far as what you've done. A lot of great names in there, and I just feel blessed to be able to do this for a living, and then obviously blessed to be able to get on here with you tonight and talk golf swing.
That's great. All right, John. Well, enjoy your cruise, and when you get back, we'll talk. Okay?
Sounds good, Pard. Look forward to it, and hopefully soon you and I can get together and have a drink and talk some more.
Well, Jack Daniels is a dry county, what I hear. We'll have to smuggle it out to Tullahoma.
That is an option. We are not a dry county in Tullahoma.
Okay. All right, John. Well, you have a good night, and thank you for your time.
Take care, Ralph.
I think that's it.
All right. I think that was a lot better.
Okay. I'm going to download it. And when are you coming back? When do you want to hear it?
Oh, well, I won't be back. I'll be back Sunday night, a week from tomorrow. Yeah.
So do you want to hear it before? Do you want to hear it before I air it, or?
Go for it. Just air it.
Okay. All right. I'll just try to edit whatever coffee guy, whatever background sounds we had, and we'll run with it. Okay.
Sounds good, Pard.
All right, John. So reach out let me know when you get back in town, so I can send you that stuff. I'll mail it to you, and we'll take it from there. Enjoy your vacation. Okay.
I will. I'll call you when I get back. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John. Have a good one.
See you, Ralph. All right, buddy. Bye-bye.